Alrighty.
My first name is Beniyahu.
Beniyahu?
Last name is Yehuda.
Yehuda?
I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I came to Torah living in New York back around 2017. Had some Jewish friends that worked in the field that I worked in, and they just kind of shared things with me. Prior to that, I was Muslim for 20 years.
Wow.
So similar but different. So I made the transition and been studying since 2018. Keeping the Sabbath, keeping the Torah. I've traveled and met a few people. So I just felt like it was time to finally convert and be around the community. I do a little bit of community work in Nashville as well, though.
So that's a pretty long, short piece, but very quick. A lot of things there. What were you before being Muslim?
Grew up Christian. My mother was an evangelist, pretty much. So I never quite stuck to that aspect of it. But she didn't get a chance. She passed before I told her that I got to tell anybody that I was studying to become a Jew. So she didn't get to see that. But my family's been supportive.
So how was your transition from being a Christian to going into Islam, which is completely different than Christianity?
The conversion, I mean, it took me probably about a good 6 months to kind of get things acclimated. But once I got into it, it was okay. I mean, lost a lot of friends. A lot of people didn't understand it, at the time. We're talking like the early '90s, late '80s, early '90s. So it was a lot of people were doing it, but it was just kind of like not understood. I think out of my friends, I was probably like the fourth one to do it out of all my friends. They all had started doing that before me. I was kind of last, but I did it for a good long time, good 20 years. So.
Wow. Well, let me ask you a question, because I know a little bit of Islam, and I know once you convert to Islam, there's no converting out of it.
For me, I pretty much disassociated with it. Don't have any friends in it anymore. I kind of severed ties, so to speak. I walked away. People see me. If they recognize me, they may ask me, and I tell them no longer practice.
But it's a serious, thing. I mean, I had the person that became Jewish. No rabbi down here in Florida wanted even to deal with them. This person basically came out of Islam. Parents were 100% Palestinian Muslims. And we were concerned over this person because they're talking about honor killing, something that's not talked about that much in public. And if you leave the faith, you have a literal warrant on your head to be, neutralized. Anyone explained that to you in leaving Islam?
No, nobody has.
Are you concerned of that? God forbid.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. So what made you want to leave Islam and embrace Judaism? I mean,
so I had several friends. Like I said, I live in New York, and I like to see, especially when they were celebrating their holidays, just the beauty of it, the beauty of keeping the Sabbath and just things they shared with me. So it just kind of resonated. So I wanted to look into it further. They gave me books and gave me a little bit of history. But a lot of times they were like, you're gonna have a hard time because from where you come from, but I was persistent, and had no problems with being persistent about it.
so what has been some of the experience you've had dealing with rabbis? You're in New York, so you're.
Well, now I'm in Nashville. So Nashville, the only people that really deal with me so much is the Reform. The Reform synagogues are okay. They're not as questionable about me, where the conservative one is, and the Orthodox won't even deal with me. They tell me in order for me to even come around, I got to start living next to. I have to move to where they are.
The community.
Yeah, and at this point, I take care of my elderly father, so that's not an option for us at this point.
Right. But you still keep Shabbat
Yeah, I do.
in your home and
I do.
travel during the weekdays to the local.
I go to the local reform one. Yeah, so I've been doing that. I mean, and it's worked so far.
So what is the main reason? Because, our people are completely been persecuted, hounded. Till this day now, the whole thing is going to be turning around against the Jewish community because of the political situation now. We've been always a people persecuted. Do you comprehend that we are not very liked?
Yeah.
I mean, so how do you deal with that, knowing that we are, you're joining a group of people that are not very liked, that will be and has been targets to Yehuda, Yahid, which is suicide murders on Jewish people, and they think that is something greatly to praise Allah for. And in addition to that, we Jews are just simply not liked. Knowing that, I mean, why do you want to become Jewish?
In spite of all that, it's still, one of my friends said, you have a Jewish heart. I mean, I guess at that point, it's in spite of all that, I still wanted to keep the Sabbath. I still wanted to be associated with the Jewish people. So, knowing that,
Well, that's incredible. Incredible because, like I said, I always say, my wine is bitter, but it's my wine. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we're not a perfect Jewish people. Hopefully someday we will be, but we were not at that level yet. And yet here you are, you left Christianity, converted to Islam, you left Islam, now you want to become Jewish. If someone would be watching you, what would they say to you, or what would you say to them? Maybe you're just converting from one place to another. You haven't found your place yet. Maybe the 7 Noachide laws would be better for you.
I thought about that in reading, but to me, just being a good person, so to speak, and not being, I look at the covenant. I look at the covenant. I look at what was given to the Israelites when they came out of bondage. And I look at the commandments and look at how they were given the rules, and they were like, okay, we'll follow. So for me, it's just, I don't want to just be basic.
So you want to be part of the Jewish people?
Definitely.
Plain and simple.
Plain and simple.
And that's the last stop. We're here.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to get started. You responded to some of my questions I had. That's why I asked it to you, because there will always be people in the Jewish community knowing that you came from one Christianity. Well, they say, okay, that's easy. That's idolatrous. But you go into Islam, and all of a sudden, everything just pops up, because there's a state of distrust.
Right.
But believe it or not, we had one time. When I was working with a local rabbi here, we had people from the Mossad, because we helped convert a person who happened to be formerly Islamic, and they were concerned, they're doing this so that way they can infiltrate Israel to do harm to Israel. Literally, it wasn't an issue of money, but of sincerity. But I see your sincerity very clear, because that's why I asked you. You are aware. You leave Islam, there is a bounty on your head, whether you're not aware of it. If you're not aware of it, there is that fatah that basically puts you in that type of situation, and I'm concerned for you.
I'll take my chances.
You take your chances.
I'll take my chances.
You'd rather be with the Jewish people.
Yeah.
And let me say this, because we had a person that we were going to do in Pakistan that had expressed the same desire. We said to them, no, you can't, because we don't want you to put your life at stake. All of a sudden you convert to become to a Jew, and all of a sudden the first thing they're looking for is a Jew who converted from out of Islam, and they're going to basically cut their heads off. Literally. I mean, lifespan is important. And that's the reason why many Bedins will not do any conversions in countries that are Islamic
Mm-hmm.
because of that same reason.
Well,
Huh?
Ride or die, man. I mean,
But you're, like I said,
okay.
this is not like a normal conversion. This is a guy that basically gone through Christianity, gone through Islam, and is now realizing that Judaism is the way. It is for him the truth, and he's putting his neck at risk, and that tells me a lot. Because believe me, a lot of Jews would put their neck at risk. They'll say, "Okay, I'm this," but they wouldn't go to that step that you're doing.
Let's do this.
So I'm going to go ahead and get you started here. We're going to start for the viewer.